There we go. That's better. Welcome to the Pritchard Pub, everybody. Tonight's guest, we got Mr. Erik Waag, author of
hello, everyone.
Some sword and sorcery books. Why don't you let everybody know who you are? Introduce yourself.
I'm Erik Waag. I write sword and sorcery books. I've got 2 novels out, 2 novelettes that are kind of, I call it Sword and 70s, and I got a few short stories in the works. So.
Oh, heck yeah. What's the most recent one? The Weird of the Spell Totem, right? Is that the most recent?
Yeah, newest book is Weird of the Skull Totem.
The Skull Totem, sorry.
Skull Totem. Yeah, no problem. I should have brought a copy here, but I'll get it in a minute. Yeah, that came out late January, and I've been planning to put out another one for, well, it should have been out by now, but this, hasn't been going smoothly, so hopefully this year.
Oh yeah, I understand that. I have my novel on the back burner as well, so to speak.
Yeah, I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, it's just chilling, waiting to go.
Yeah.
So I noticed a lot of your advertising. Like, are you a big Robert E. Howard fan and stuff like that?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think a lot of people are. But yeah, I love those stories, and I'm doing a series right now on YouTube. Just started. If you want to check out my YouTube channel, anyone who's watching, so I've just started with Phoenix on the Sword, which is the first sort of first Conan story, and I'm working on a video today of Scarlet Citadel. So got it recorded. All the microphone's all scratchy and crap, so I had to redo it. So it's still in the works.
Oh yeah. Your stories, are they all set in the same world then?
Yeah, so I've got an imaginary world, secondary reality, whatever you want to call it, and I'm sort of building it up bit by bit. When I've built worlds before for role playing, it's been a little too extensive. I spend too much time world building, and in these, what I did was I consciously did not world build unless I needed it for the story. So I'm sort of building it bit by bit, so I don't waste. Because some people will build, stories for years.
We could talk for a chunk of the podcast about the iceberg, dude. That's just smart, I basically did the same thing, and like once you get through a thick boy, then it's like that's how my short stories came up, man. Is like I came off of that thick boy, and I had established so many iceberg tips, so to speak, that I could just, here's my orc story, and actually like it got me even deeper. So I'm all on board with like pulp and short stories now, having started with novels and then branched over to them. I'm realizing the power in them, because it's just like, yeah, you could reveal a whole story from the perspective of the party or the heroes through a thick novel and stuff, and yeah, they're traveling places, but you can also accomplish just as much through a series of short stories with very focused characters. You know what I mean? Like I said, the orc story, and then whatever else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even my 2 novels, they're fairly short. One is short, 65,000 words, and one's about 55. So they're shorter novels. I didn't want to get too extensive. And
so
stories, just focus on one sort of event, very close camera, you know what I mean? And sword and sorcery is perfect for that, because it's in a fantasy kind of environment, but epic fantasy is about saving the whole world, and sword and sorcery is much more focused on the individual character and allows you to get more into it, into the nitty-gritty action. So.
Even my epic fantasy, I like my series of short stories, they're all legends, so it really is kind of, in a way, world focused, right? Like you said, yours is character focused. Like my orc story happens to be the most character centric one. That's my graphic novel or whatever. That's my most character driven one. It's like a parade of characters, though, is what it comes down to. So I see what you're saying. Like, if you really want to get into it, and like, yeah, the shorter stories, like, you do have to be a little bit more character centric. That's kind of a little bit what it's about and stuff like that. Like seeing what's going on with this person, and in their life and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, character centric in that you're focusing on one character. So,
Yes, sir.
excuse me, just coughing a lot here. Like the character arcs aren't extensive in Sword and Sorcery usually. There's an argument going on right now on Facebook about that, about, you know, how much of a character arc you can have in Sword and Sorcery. And for me, it
Right.
should be pretty light, you know, but it's all focused on the character and what's going on with them. Yeah, just focus on the character, and it's sort of a close-up view. And if you do too much world building, what you do is you get all this material that you're interested in, you know, and like other people might not be. So it's like movie sets. You build this extensive movie set, and then you want to show off every little bit of it, but it might not actually serve the story. So it sort of gets in the way. I think that happens with a lot of guys who are writing 15-book series. They've got these extensive worlds, and they got to show off every little bit of it. A little too much.
Oh yeah.
Although still, they sell a lot, so maybe I'm wrong.
So it's the same world. You said you focus on like one character at a time. Is it recurring, or do you do different characters for different stories?
So I've got some different characters in the works. Really, as it is, I've got this character Skarda, who's essentially a Northman, kind of a barbarian figure. Very, he's a fighter. He's a little bit wild. He makes some maybe not the best decisions, and that's how he gets into adventures. But I do have other characters that are coming up. I have a character that, excuse me, he's like a teenage thief, and he goes up against a very powerful gang lord in a big city, and I'm working on that story. I submitted it to Anvil, but Richard rejected it. So.
Oh yeah.
It's basically it's a linear story, like which I think most Sword and Sorcery tales should be, but it deals with memory modification and things like that. So the perspective of the main character is pretty weird, and he's like, "Yeah, this is a little hard to follow." So,
like Memento, a little bit,
yeah,
like a little
like Memento, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to give any spoilers away, but yeah, there's some memory modification, and the character's confused, and it ends up making the reader confused. So, got to work on that.
You know, that's funny. I submitted a Memory of Mortality to Anvil, which also got rejected. Fun fact. A lot of people with how good of friends like me and Richard are, and how we've worked with like music and stuff, and I have my comic in there. Some people might think that it was just like a shoe-in or something. No, I got rejected too, man. And it's for the same reason. It's kind of like a Memento style story, but it's funny after the fact. That's a lot of people's favorites because, I mean, that happens to be the one where I showcase heroism a little bit more than the others. It's like I give you 3 stories, and 2 out of 3, it's like, you know, I can go realistic. I can go surprise and subversive. But you know what? Here's heroic also. You know what I mean? Here's true heroism. You know, so you had to get that in there. But yeah, I'm right there with you. You get in the reject pile. I get it.
Happens.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, even Robert E. Howard had rejected stories, so I don't feel too bad.
And
I think I can work on it. And I've got another one coming out. I'm working on it. And what I'm trying to do is mix like boxing stories, like pulp boxing stories with Sword and Sorcery. So it's a little bit all over the place right now, but I think it's fun. And we'll see if I can clean it up and submit it either to Anvil or to Battleborn. So. Yeah,
I gotta make some new pulp and stuff and shop it around whenever. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up on the chat here. I like to just flash the chat at the chat while we're talking.
Oh, I'm going over to comments. I can see them now. Okay.
Yes.
I have no idea what I'm doing on StreamYard here.
Oh yeah, it's intuitive, but it's crazy how it does have its limits. Like we're finding out, and at the same time, it's not the most intuitive.
Yeah.
Like it tends to hide stuff on you right in plain sight. McKay says 60K is a good length. I'm gonna crank mine just a little now that we're in business. There we go. Yeah, he says it's a good length, very digestible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the future is going to go a little bit shorter length, and I don't mean like super flash fiction. I mean like novelette, short novel.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think
yeah,
it's book length, and the whole like huge series thing is really set up for bookstores. You know, it's a model that's built for bookstores. So we're going to see that for quite some time still, because that's just the way of thinking. But yeah, we're going shorter. And with people buying off of Amazon, you can make it whatever size you want. You know, you don't have to conform to any norms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that audio thing just like lifted my spirits. I don't know what happened there. Dude, it's like whoo! It's like just the energy even. All right.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah. Admittedly, I would like to read more Howard. I need to get into some Howard. I do.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people have even made like comics out of it. If not, I mean that's something that he needs to get in.
Oh
on,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like one of my first encounters with Conan was Savage Sword of Conan, and yeah, I love it. Of course, there's a lot of pastiches there too, so you know.
Yeah. We just had 80s Fantasy Week at the Iron Seas, and I'm surprised. I mean, damn, Conan's probably a little bit before that too. When is Howard? Is he like around the Dune era, or is he like back with Tolkien? When is Howard?
Well, he wrote the Conan stories between 1933 and 1936. So that's way back. You know,
kind of like with Tolkien, then. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tolkien
like
came
with
after him, actually. So
that's fantastic. That's fantastic stuff. So, like, yeah, really. I mean, dang, man, why don't more people? He really doesn't get enough. Like sword and sorcery doesn't really get talked about enough in general. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. There's a lot of ideas about why that is. I think what's his name? I have to look on my bookshelf. I'll find it in a minute. J.D. Cowan. So he's got a book about the history of the pulps, and yeah, there's a whole movement to sort of replace the sort of heroic, epic fantasy, the sword and sorcery fantasy, with more of it's called futurism. So it's like sci-fi that's very hard sci-fi, and kind of removes heroism, right? It's all about good ideas. He calls it big men with screwdrivers.
Oh, like postmodernism.
Yeah, basically goes postmodernist, and it really for me, it drains the energy out of it. There's some good writers from the futurist era, futurist.
What'd you say? Big man with a screwdriver? What was that?
Yeah, big man with a screwdriver. So they're not heroes, right? They're not Conan. They don't go out and face the enemy and change history with the power of one man or anything like that. They've got ideas that they share with others and they talk about, and that's it. Asimov is probably the most famous futurist. He's one of the best writers in the futurist, but I don't like his stories.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Futurist. It's a little different than postmodernist. I see. It's like hyper. Well, okay, I see. Like not quite cyberpunk, but just.
Yeah, I would say it is kind of postmodernist, but it's the futurism was like a 1940s, 50s, 60s kind of era science fiction.
Yeah.
It's very hard science fiction. And it kept having holes poked in it with people like Heinlein, and then Star Wars came along, in was it 77? And really blew that apart. So,
and then of course Star Wars is just like the a slightly more, I don't even want to say watered down, because it's almost like the opposite, where they injected more like high fructose corn syrup into Dune, right? Like they take little they took like Dune and like other things before that, like was it not, I don't want to say, it's not a rival, but like or Academy, what is it? It's like it's very futuristic one. It's something like that, but the name escapes me. But yeah, Star Wars of course just took those things and made it colorful.
Man, I'm coughing a lot, pardon me. No, it's heroic fantasy set in space, and
yes, sir.
That doesn't mesh well with the whole futurist idea, because they're Luke Skywalker's a hero, and
yeah, and even Dune gets a little bit more, even though there is like quote unquote magic in Dune in a way. It does basically stay sci-fi. it stays sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's not like space fantasy. It stays sci-fi the whole time.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I
I mean,
in a long time though. So.
it's fun to reread. I mean, you notice stuff each time.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
But I'm focused on Howard right now with my series. So
I think I'm a little bit more sci-fi than I like to admit.
No.
Yeah.
If you like to read it, go ahead and read it. Absolutely.
Well,
but I'd love to do some like Sword and Planet stories in the future.
That'd be cool, like John Carter almost.
Yeah, like Jack Carter, things like that. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah. Even, I mean, that's what Star Wars is, kind of, except they just have the lightsaber, and like
kind of, yeah, it is kind of like Sword and Planet. It's
a little bit, but like leaning more planet than sword. But
yeah,
yeah.
Well, I mean, it was based on a samurai movie, essentially. So.
Oh yeah,
I'm
and
I'm blanking on the name. It's right there. But.
I don't know the name either. I do know it's very samurai focused, and I know that very inspired by like World War II dogfights, naval battle, stuff like that.
Yeah.
World War II, basically, in a nutshell. Big influence.
The fun stuff.
Yeah. Star Wars wears it on their sleeve. I think. Tolkien tried to shrink away from it. He was like, I don't like allegory, but I mean.
It's
my story
allegory,
just you can't help it, man.
You
Sorry.
can't get away from it, but
But allegory's fine.
Yeah, it was kind of smart that he said, "Oh, I want to get away from allegory because it makes it more timeless," and I think that's what he was aiming for. So
yeah, and he may have had people interpreting it the wrong way at the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like maybe for as much of like a Christian as he is and stuff like that. If maybe people were a little too much like, oh, Gandalf is Christ or whatever and all this stuff. And maybe he was just like, hold on, I'm not trying to like blur these lines or do anything like that. You know what I mean? Just take a step back in that regard. So it might not even be like a bad thing per se, just people going a little hard on interpreting. And I don't know, man.
There's all kinds of interpretations. It's hard to say. I mean, I think ultimately it was a Christian story, but he was trying to make like mythology for Britain. So he had a lot of Northern Germanic sort of pagan themes going on. Gandalf is pretty much Odin, I think.
Oh yeah, dude. He is there's a reason why so many modern writers gravitate around him. And I mean, Robert E. Howard too. Like you said, it's such a powerful thing to hyper focus on that one character so much. He's doing like many of the same amazing things, but just in a different way. It's a different flavor. You know what I mean? Tolkien is just a good roadmap to follow because like he's showing all of us how to properly infuse something with something else, right? Like he said, I'm trying to make mythology for Britain, but really what he's saying is I'm inspired by mythology from Britain to build my fantasy world is like kind of what actually happened at the end of it.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so like if only things like, and it's ironic, right? Because if only things like Rings of Power and like Halo and these modern shows followed the Tolkien roadmap and really understood what he was doing and what he meant by I'm trying to make mythology for Britain.
Oh man, I think we're gonna go down a rabbit hole if we start talking about Rings of Power. Oh,
I know, dude. I know.
Yeah, I think, I'll just say I think they're intentionally trying to destroy it.
Me too.
They can't be this bad by mistake. It's just
after the first billion, you have to ask billion. You have to ask yourself. How are they looking at that capital B and not questioning everything they've done in the last several years or whatever? And it's the truth is because that B doesn't matter. It's like a non-existent lowercase b to them. Like it's just like
they don't care.
They don't care if it rolls over to trillion. They'll just they'll just say we've spent that much money trying to change minds or whatever. So and that's what it's really about.
They don't care, but the investors do. I've gotten to the point where I'm like encouraging them to be bad. Go ahead, put it.
Yes.
Make 3 more seasons. Put $1 billion each. Go ahead.
Just do it.
Burn it.
Just burn it all. Less resources for you. Yeah, dude, for real. I'm right there too. Like, I think the straw for me where I crossed the line and I was just like, you know what, just go even harder. It was when was with Halo. I think One Piece was okay. I mean, everybody raves about it. It's so well reviewed and stuff, and it's not the worst, but I mean, I think it could have been a little bit more accurate, to be honest. And like things like Avatar, nobody's even talking about that anymore because for as quote unquote well received as that was at the moment, there's a reason nobody's talking about it anymore, and it's because it wasn't perfect. In fact, there was many changes. So, I mean, around that time period, like Halo, Avatar, One Piece is where I'm just like, just keep going. Just keep going. Show everybody. It's like freedom of speech, like, no, hold on. Let the man talk. We all want to hear what they have to say. Like, go ahead.
Let them go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to get into the rabbit hole, but yeah.
Yeah. But
it's not going to ruin. It's not going to ruin Lord of the Rings. It's not going to ruin Tolkien because it's untouchable.
We still have our movies. We still have our books. Yeah.
It's like a bad Hercules movie or something, right? From the 70s.
Oh, I was a huge fan of Aragon growing up because it was right. It lined up right when I was in high school and stuff. So it was just cool, to have like fresh fantasy because it's like, you only really ever hear of like the other bigs like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. So at the time, that was like awesome. And I wasn't like an avid reader of like Dragon Riders or Pern and these other things that Aragon clearly ripped off, which like in hindsight, we all know now that Aragon is just like Dragon Riders of Pern mixed with Star Wars. That's what it is. But at the time, I'm just a kid experiencing Aragon for the first time, which just goes to show you tropes done well remain just that. They remain tropes and they don't become stereotypes, right? I think that's the term, this stereotype.
Well, essentially, I thought you were talking about Aragorn for a second, but Aragon, the dragon.
Aragon, yes. And they made a movie of that. They made a movie of that. Terrible movie.
Yeah.
Didn't ruin it for me because it's just a terrible movie, right? So.
Yeah, I haven't read Aragon, but I've heard it's not the best written, but it sounds like the guy was trying to take it seriously and
he's trying.
Be honest with it. And I think if you do that, if you can write, if you understand the themes and you're an okay writer and you make it fun for the audience, then it's gonna work, all right? Because it's like swimming with the river. You know what I mean? Yes,
sir. I had to say I really enjoyed how like his characters were very connected, and not to make this an Aragon stream, but his characters are very connected. Like they start in the same small town and they branch off, and by the end of the whole overarching story, they're both like their own heroes and stuff, and it's crazy and it's awesome. And like he's the dragon rider with magic, and the other dude is just like normal Joe, if I remember right. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like the other guy was just like normal Joe. He helped defend his like town. They built shit. They like rallied the people. They fled the town. Like he was like this normal, realistic hero in real life kind of thing.
That makes it more exciting too.
Yeah, and I have to say there wasn't. I mean, they tried to do some of that. Like I don't know. You got your Han Solos and your like Luke Skywalker starting on a farm kind of thing, which I guess that might be why they call it Star Wars mixed with Dragon Rider. But like as far as like I think he just like twisted that. I think he twisted that in a little bit more the working class like hero kind of thing. Like I'm gonna rise to the occasion kind of thing.
I mean that's a classic part of the hero's journey, right? You start as a regular person in the regular world, and you get driven into this magical world. So
you do it right enough and honest enough. Yeah, you do it honest enough, then even when they make a terrible movie, then people still be like, whatever.
I mean, with Lord of the Rings, those movies, they definitely had their faults. But I'm talking about the original Peter Jackson movies.
They did.
Faults.
Yeah, there's no Tom. There's a lot of things. No Scouring of the Shire.
Yeah. But yes, there's parts in the second movie I kind of get, I'm not happy with. But overall, it's pretty good,
Yeah, they I'm not even going to say they had to do what they had to do because at this point, with my current beliefs, It's like, no, you could make it spot on. You could try, but with the respect that Jackson put into it, it's a whole different story. He like respected it, and that's the difference. If it's not perfect, but you respect it, and it's enough, and we can feel like we're watching Lord of the Rings at least, and the story's like mostly there, then yeah, you know what I mean? Sure.
Yeah, it works out in the end. Yeah. Even with like bad sword and sorcery movies from way back, people are having fun with it. And even if they don't really understand what they're doing, it's not like a heroic fantasy. These bad movies can be a lot of fun because I think they get the feel of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the difference is like with the Rings of Power, it's like they're basically writing their own thing. So there's no honest writing to fall back on. So it's not honest writing right off the bat. You're going to alienate people. And then the second thing, you're just self-inserting and trying to change everything and just burning money like we established earlier. So it's like, of course, people are just going to flat out reject it. Of course. Of course.
No, it's just sort of the standard.
Yeah. Like Aragon didn't even get by trying to do an honest, shitty movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're a dishonest and doing shitty shit too, it's like, come on now. Yeah. Anyway, back to your books here. What's your favorite character, and do you try to like imbue anything special into your books? Like me personally, I've been trying to put a lot of family back into storytelling. Just like some aspect of my story just has like family and death, both of those things. So
I suppose if there's a theme to the novels, it's like an exploration of freedom and what you do when you have it, responsibility, the price you'd pay for freedom, things like that. That's sort of way down deep underneath,
like that.
And back to a favorite character, I guess Skarda would be my favorite. I've put some work into him. I've just taken various sword and sorcery heroes and picked my favorite parts. And tried to come up with a character that I would like, and I think it's worked out okay. So he's not exactly Conan. There's a bit of, what's his name? Thorgrim's Skull Splitter from Erik the Viking, which is a comedy.
Yeah.
So a little bit of that, and just a few other things. And it's got almost a little bit of a sense of the Marvel, like, smart-ass humor, but I'm being very careful not to use the humor in like stupid places, because I think Marvel movies can really ruin things by dropping jokes in the middle of scenes. So
that's another topic.
Kind of humor a little bit, yeah. Want that kind of humor, but like in the right place. So humor is a bit of a smart ass. He opens his mouth, lets it run. He can't really control it. It gets him into trouble. And that's I think a fun part of him, and can advance the plot.
Humor is pretty vital. I mean, I do believe you could probably get by without it, because you could still get some grim types. Like I could read a whole book without humor. It's fine. It's not like it's gonna like scar me or something. But it is vital, just from a scientific, like if you're cooking, in the kitchen, just from a very from that perspective. And I mean, even removed from writing, like it's very important in all things. Like, Bats was telling me, he was reading this book. I forgot what book it was called, but the source of all humor is pain. So like, humor and pain are intrinsically, connected.
Linked.
Yes. And, beyond that, writing aside, I think they scientifically found out that, the number one thing that ladies look for in dudes is humor.
Yeah.
Like, you could go to any politics, any culture, anything, and they're just gonna be like, funny. You know what I mean? I don't know. Probably you'll get other things like strong, can take care of me, whatever. But like funny is like the universal one. So
because it's like an identifier for like intelligence. So
down to earth.
Just down to earth.
At
least reasonably smart, and
like, you can interpret things. Like you're just able. So
I try to inject some of that in there. Yeah, I mean, you can have a grimdark novel. It would definitely, those can definitely be fun.
They can, yeah. And I try not to verge onto the grimdark. I mean, I shouldn't say I try not to. I definitely just let things rip. But I do keep that in mind where I don't want to be too grim. So like when things are getting, if things start getting like noticeably where I can feel how brutal and intense it's getting, I just double down on like the poetry, and I'm just like I'm just gonna go that route, but because the story needs to go where the story's gonna go.
Yeah.
But I can, there's ways you can kind of distance yourself from just carnage and hopelessness the whole time, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it comes into pacing as well, because you want your action scenes, and then your comedy can be a little more fast paced, and then like the more, I guess, lower paced, slower, more thoughtful stuff can be a little grim, a little more thoughtful, and so it goes up and down.
And because I'm not being grim for what's the term, like in the modern sense that people are doing it to like, I don't know, humanize the bad guy, or just dramatic effect. I'm going to subvert your expectations. I'm going to just shock and awe. I'm not trying to do any of that. So that's why, that's why the deeper into the swamp I go, I double down on the poetry, because I think what that does is it kind of puts your mind in a different place. Like, wow, this is really terrible. What's happening? It's like, this is really terrible what's happening, but I'm kind of floating along through it instead of being bombarded with it or shoved down my throat, or it's being vomited onto me or something. Like, just you feel gross reading it. You know what I mean? It's something like that. I want them to be more introspective, like what's happening right now, what led this character to this moment. Like, even if they're the protagonist, like not necessarily painted as the good guy, so to speak. So what led to this? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to like humanize bad guys is basically what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to be overly grim. So if I can put it in a place of retrospection and introspection, that's where I'd prefer to have it. And I think the poetry helps with that a little bit. And humor can bring it back too, like you were saying.
Yeah. It's like different flavors. Yeah, there's a couple of concepts there for sure. Like the humanizing bad guys thing is just it's overdone, like way too overdone. I like having not humanized, like not to put a bad guy in a positive light, but like explain the rationality behind the bad guy, so you can see why he's doing what he's doing. Because if it doesn't make sense, it's just kind of like what's going on here.
And if it doesn't make sense, he has to literally be the type of bad guy that's just where it makes sense that it doesn't make sense, where he's just like a crazy person. He's like that's like the murder mysteries, right? It doesn't make sense. He is literally just a crazy serial killer or whatever. You know what I mean? Like then that makes sense. But,
in that case, it's almost like that character is a force of nature. It's just a random thing that happens. So
that's epic. I just thought of it, but like I don't know if it's the beard and the shades or like the fact that you're a sword and sorcery author, but just immediately I was just like, force of nature. Oh, barbarian, lightning, fire behind him. Yeah.
I'm wearing my barbarian shirt. So
is that
there you go?
Barbarians of the Storm? Barbarian in general.
Barbarian. It's my. Here.
Oh yeah.
Can't get it right.
Oh, that's badass. Here, I can pull. So.
No one can ruin your day because you've killed them all.
Yeah. Hold on, I have just the clip for that. It goes a little something like this.
Based.
Might be loud. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, all that stuff's important, and especially in more character-centric stories like Sword and Sorcery, like you were saying, it's very hyper focused around the one character.
So when he's going up against the bad guy, you want to know what's, the character has to think, what's the bad guy going to do? What can I do? So there's got to be some sort of rationality. I guess, like I said, you can write a force of nature kind of thing, but
not every time. Not every time. That's what I'll say. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like in my second book, the bad guy, is he completely crazy?
Right.
Not entirely.
I've been tinkering around with reverse character arcs, and
Mhm.
I'll just say there's a
That's interesting.
reason. Yeah. I'll just say there's a reason Walter White has to die at the end. I mean, I know, man. We've seen like 8 seasons of the guy struggling and transforming into this monster, and he's right there, and he's so close to escaping. He did escape. Uh, but you got to kill him at the end because he's a bad guy. Sorry. I mean, cool character, bad guy. You got to kill him. Because to let him live is to say that there's no consequences for being a bad guy at like the core of the story, even if that's not the authorial intent. And I'm not saying you have to kill every single one of your Walter White characters, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that should be the first option. It's like, okay, I got to kill him or her. Well, how do I do that without doing that? If you really don't want to do that, but
Yeah.
yeah, uh,
No, that's
it,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm also not saying you should 100% just be obsessed with what other people are interpreting your book as either, but I,
Yeah.
it's just like kind of some things that you have to come to terms with when you start dabbling with like reverse character arcs, like your Walter Whites and your Anakin Skywalkers, you know.
Mhm.
Um, man, and your Aaron Yeagers from Attack on Titan, man, and Death Note, toss it in there. There's a lot of greats, man, and they all happen to be. I sat back and I was like, what's some things that like connect a lot of my favorite stories, and that was one of them. So I did have to do that and dabble,
Yeah.
but
No,
like
definitely
I
in
said,
heroic fantasy. Yeah. I think in Sword and
yes,
Sorcery, sometimes the bad guy gets away, but yeah.
but not when it's all wrapped. Like Sauron, the ring gets destroyed, right? Like
Yeah.
the ring gets destroyed. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you still have Frodo go through the Frodo still gets the bidness from Shelob, right? That's
Yeah.
actually that could be an allegory for some things that aren't exactly family friendly. I'll just say that
Yeah.
Shelob forces herself on him. Excuse me, Shelob, rude.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I mean, yeah, Lord of the Rings still gets dark in ways. That's like what I'm saying. Where if you have an established thing, like okay, I need this to get this dark. There's a way you can start taking steps back. Like, well, how do I do that without doing that? And like Tolkien's a genius. He's like spiders, man. There you
Yeah.
go. They're horrifying. There you go.
Yeah. Some symbolism to cover it up, and it's just as powerful, I think.
Yes, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it even happens to like a man, Frodo, right? So it's like now it's twice as powerful because like men can kind of if they pick up on it can kind of feel why all the ladies really dig this scene for some reason. You know what I mean?
Hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, writing's powerful, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna take care of my son really quick. Tell us more about your book.
Yeah, no problem. You know what? Let me grab them and I can show them off. 1 second here.
Sounds good. I'm gonna go over the chat. All right, let's see what we got here. Stranger in a Strange Land is the book Bat Sauce was talking about with comedy and pain being connected. And
Oh crap! I left it off.
oh, you're good. And it's more fun as a writer when you imbue comedy. It's very very powerful. I mean, case in
Oh,
point here,
definitely.
John
Yeah.
John Douglas, cheesy buffalo chicken wrap, done and devoured. There's a little comedy, right, from the author. So yeah,
All right. So this is. Oh, that's not going to work. There we go. That's
I'll
the
full
first
screen
book.
you.
Yeah, there we go. This is the proof. I actually gave away the first copy that I got, so I'll have to get that back
Oh
at
yeah,
some point. Yeah, Citadel of Seven Swords and Weird of the Skull Totem. There we go. So yeah,
heck yeah.
it's all about getting into a jam and then just following some simple steps, of rising action until things get out of hand, and then something unexpected, and yeah, he gets out somehow.
real quick here. Isabella says she's back.
Ah,
How's
thanks,
it
Tim.
going? Uh, it's going good. We're just talking
Hey,
some
is it
sword
back?
and sorcery. Yeah, talking some sword and sorcery here. Bat Sauce says it's great. It's a great book, but it gets weird during the sex cult part. Yeah,
What,
yeah.
the first one, Citadel of Seven Swords?
Is that what you're talking about, Bats? I think that's the one I have up in my stash right above me here. It's tucked away. I don't want to dig for it though. But yeah. Um,
Yeah, I might have
oh,
gone overboard with the one character. I don't know. At points, Daniel was like, what exactly are you trying to do with this? I'm like, I don't know. It's my first book.
yeah, like focusing a bit too hard on one character. Is that what you're saying?
No, on the, like, obviously I wanted some
Okay.
action and
Yeah.
violence, and then there's the sexuality part of it, and I
Oh
might
yeah.
have
Yeah.
overwritten those parts. I took a lot of them out,
Well,
but that is the character, and she's not really a good guy either. So
yeah. If it gets the job done, I mean,
yeah,
overwriting can be relative. I mean, some people
yeah.
would call the same passage purple prose when it's more like flowery,
Oh, Bat Sauce was
taste.
talking about Stranger in a Strange Land. Okay, yeah,
Okay. Oh, the sex cult part in the strange land. Gotcha.
it's not
Gotcha.
really a cult, so well, I guess it's
Wags like, oh, my sex cult? What? Oh shit.
what?
God damn it. I've been called out. No, you have the tasteful Conan sex cults, Mr. Wag. You have the
Okay,
tasteful
okay,
Conan sex cults.
yeah.
uh,
And then there's nothing in the second book that's no one, not even kissing. None of that.
yeah.
Just people dying horribly.
I, I realized I mean, so I don't I'm pretty, sex free in my writing and it's not like intentional. It's just
Yeah,
like not relevant to the plot unless it is, right? Like
yeah,
my novel, the main character is pregnant, so you'd think it would be relevant. And this is
mhm,
one thing I do need to like. I still need to go over it and give it one more pass of editing. I'm gonna have Daniel look at it. My wife's gonna
yeah.
look at it one more time again. And I
Daniel's your editor too. Yeah.
I I want him to. I'm gonna need two for the chonker. You know what I mean? You just need a couple pairs of eyes, just in
Yeah,
case it's amazing what we miss, and we thought
oh
we went over everything. We
yeah,
thought we caught everything, and then they find stuff, and then you still find stuff after it's published. It's crazy.
oh, yeah,
So, but yeah, you'd think the sex scene would be relevant for the pregnant character, and I mean, out of any story I'm gonna write, that would be the story I could get away with her like remembering it, right? And then it doesn't even have to be graphic. It could actually be tasteful and romantic and symbolic, too. And I mean, it's kind of relevant it should be relevant who this baby's father is. That's the whole
mhm,
thing. I got family in my stories, right, Andy? Kind of calling myself out here. So it's like that's where I is the one instance where I felt like any sort of like pull towards writing it, and it would be just like
yeah,
her remembering it. It's not like it actually happening. And because like aside from that, if I have her like, I mean, we're all human, right? But I just didn't feel the need to like have her pursue her carnal pleasures in the events of the story, and then by the end it wasn't relevant. So
mhm,
I guess that's where I'm at with that. But like all my other
yeah,
stories, I mean, even if they're dudes and dudes are a little bit more carnal, in a lot of ways, on the surface, so to speak, just more
mhm,
obvious about it. Um, I just never felt the need. It's like I'm telling the
yeah,
story of this legend. I guess I don't really need to have anything like that happen. I mean, I do have like the story I told you about that is like a clear showcase of heroism. I do have like the it does allude to like something is probably about to happen,
mhm,
but then the hero intervenes. So it's like
yeah,
I kind of brush up against the thought without going full on into it, I guess. But
yeah,
I have this fascination with like heavy metal magazine, and like I want to read
yeah,
Robert E. Howard, and I do notice that's a common theme of like Conan like sword and sorcery like stuff is
yes,
you need some
yeah,
boobs and muscles.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like, no shirt. Put your shirt on.
Yeah.
And the second
Yeah.
one, people are saying, "Oh, I can't." The second one, it's can I get it closer? No, it's not going to work.
I can full screen it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, she's you can see her butt, and
Hey.
people are saying, "Oh my God, you can see her butt." It's like a
Oh shucks.
a cover from the '80s. I'm like, well, that's kind of what I'm going for.
That's kind of what I'm going for.
Tired of
Yeah.
this, like, so sensitive about it. She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, she's got a butt.
Act like
It's
the
it's very inspired by Frazetta. I love Frazetta and those guys. And,
act like political candidates aren't dragging butts up in front of children and
Oh, yeah.
showing it to everybody. It's
oh
like
my
it's
God, yeah.
oh, clutching my pearls, I can see her butt on the painted art. Oh no, that's not a real person. I can see her butt. Damn it.
Yeah, I almost quit Twitter over that because I didn't know how to sort of like filter it properly. And
Oh,
finally
shit.
figured it out, but gee,
Okay.
that was pissing me off.
But Twitter was filtering you over it too, huh? Damn.
It kept showing me stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
In
Libraries.
Yeah, you're just sitting here scrolling. You're like, oh, Iron Age Media, cool. Got some John Douglas in there. Scroll past some bat sauce, and then I didn't need to see that with my son over there, and like,
It's not only the nudity; it's also like they're showing it to kids, and it's like, maybe don't do that. I don't know.
Yeah,
but don't want to get. I'm getting political. I better not.
Well, you guys sell yourself, Mr. Wag, but I understand. I mean, like, so it's interesting, right? For my music career, I noticed when the further bands leaned into something like a gimmick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say politics very much would be the gimmick of somebody too, without, I mean, whether they want it to be or not, just because if they make that part of their identity, I guess is what I'm getting at. I noticed those bands that leaned further into, made things even more a part of their identity. Their identity dies when that thing dies.
Yeah.
So like politics, whatever. In music, there's a lot of people doing kind of the same vocal techniques in some cases. Maybe having certain lyrics, stuff like that. But it's like as soon as that's not cool anymore, it's not cool anymore, and you aren't either, right? And it's that doubles back to Tolkien and Robert E. Howard, I guess, with the whole timeless thing, right?
Yeah. So they're both sort of riffing off of mythology, right? So Tolkien did it very consciously, and I think Robert did it consciously as well. He knew mythology and history very well, and I think he drew from that heavily, and that pulp writing goes back to like more Gothic style horror, and the Gothic style horror goes right back to medieval tales and ancient myths. So it's all connected, even though it might not look like it on the surface.
Well, and those ancient myths too are timeless for a reason in and of themselves. So
absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, Gandalf is basically Odin. Like, I'm trying to do a lot of that with my writing too. Right now, my stuff, my novel is kind of like a salad. It's mixed with a lot of the things in there, but it kind of like centers more around. All my stuff is kind of centering more around like Norse and Celtic mythology so far, with like my symbolism and stuff. Like, I have a few Odins at this point. At this rate, I know, dude. I can't wait to get into like Vedic symbolism and like even Christianity, like because Christianity has so many beautiful stories to draw from, with amazing lessons and their own symbolism at the heart of it, stuff like that. Even like the Vedic stuff, that's like sci-fi, dude. I don't know if you're familiar. Like Vimanas, they're flying fortresses that shoot like laser beams and stuff. Like gods. Yeah, the gods have like ultimate weapons of destruction. They're shooting laser beams at each other and stuff with like flying freaking fortresses in the sky. Yeah, dude. They're called Vimanas. They're fucking amazing.
Amazing. No, I want to check it out a little more, at least get a surface level idea of it, because I think that's going to be kind of the setting for my book 5. I've Got it vaguely planned out to book 5.
Like
I should,
Vedic,
because I don't have book 3 done, but
like Vedic
But yeah.
Indian mythology type thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's sort of mentioned in book 1. The sorceress character goes off to find what I call astromancers, and
Oh,
she's
that's a
trying
good
to
name.
unlock the
A good term.
secrets of a book, and she's after magical knowledge, and she needs their help. And I just leave it there as an open thread.
Yeah. What kind of music you listen to, Wag?
Oh, it's probably pretty obvious. Metal.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I pretty much wrote my first book listening to Man of War and Eternal Champion. I'd say 90% of it is written to those two bands.
Oh,
So
heck yeah.
it really sets the tone when you're writing, to have some music playing. So
And I'm not going to pull Bat Sauce's comment up because he's shilling his vote, but don't forget to vote the Iron Seas poll. And if they did it correctly, I believe it's going to be Waterworld is going to be my vote.
Oh my
I
God.
believe. Hold on, let me pull it up.
I got to come back and do another show with you guys on that. And I will actually watch the movie this time. But
Oh no,
I don't know if I could do. I don't know if I could do Waterworld.
It's not Waterworld. It's not Waterworld. They decided to go with my other choice, which I'm okay with because I was busy today. I wasn't very active in the chat, so I wasn't responding. Unfortunately,
Sinbad. I could watch Sinbad.
You should come back because I think like that whole first hour of talking about the movie that we watched is.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you didn't watch the movie, you can still jump in and like just say what you think about what's being discussed. And like, I think dissecting a movie is actually fantastic for a bunch of like creatives and authors and even musicians.
Yeah, to see what everyone picks out, what catches their attention. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. We'll have to have you come back for like specifically Sword and Sorcery Week or like one of the fantasy weeks, maybe.
Or anything from the 80s. I think I'm like
okay.
Anything with explosions. So
okay. Cool. Anything you want to shout out or anything like that? Give a last little pitch here for everybody. I'll put your link in the. I'm gonna look it up on X.
Okay.
I'll put your link in
the last pitch. Let's see, Citadel of Seven Swords, up on Amazon. It's book 1 of a series, but they don't have to be read in order because they're independent stories, vaguely connected. And Weird of the Skull Totem. It's book 2. I am working on book 3, which is called Princess of the Shrouded Mountain. It's going to be kind of a Lost World kind of adventure. And I've got, what else? I've got a story coming out in Anvil. Is it 5 or 6? I think it's 5. And I'll be in the first issue of Battleborn as well. If you haven't heard of the Battleborn magazine, I'll put a link in my Twitter.
Oh, you should. I actually haven't. I think it sounds familiar. So maybe it's been mentioned.
So it's Course Guard. He's putting together a magazine with Sean Courseguard. He's putting together a magazine with Pritchard, and this one is specifically sword and sorcery. So,
oh hell yeah, dude!
Yeah, so Richard's more general sci-fi fantasy. This one's specifically sword and sorcery.
And I'd have to say Richard leans. I have to say, getting to know him a little bit more, he does lean a little bit more sci-fi. I think. I mean, as much as even if he wouldn't like to admit it, just think about his fascination with guns. The dude is very like pro 2A. He likes his guns. Like makes sense. Yeah. Give the guy some mechs. Let him have some fun. Give Richard some sword and sorcery on the side, right?
They make fun things. Can't deny it. So. Yeah.
Well, hell yeah, man.
What I got going on? Sword and Heroes is another thing I'm going to be in November. Check out Lynn Perry. Lyn, Lynn Perry. You can find him on Facebook. He's got a monthly sort of sword and sorcery rundown, very handy little list to have. And he's now providing a monthly free sword and sorcery story. And I think we're on number 6 now, 5 or 6. And I'm going to be in the November edition. I say edition, but it's basically an emailed story. It's kind of an interesting concept. So check that out as well.
Yeah.
If you like sword and sorcery.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hell
There
yeah.
you go.
All right. So I will play us out on the Saga of Sunsets music video. It has some
Nice.
80s sounding, maybe like early 90s maybe sounding stuff going on there.
Cool.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having me, and
You're
thanks
welcome.
for everyone in chat.
You're welcome back anytime. You know, as always, you're one of the boys, to be honest, in my eyes. So yeah,
Thank you. Yeah,
Xander
definitely will be back.
Xander approves too.
Tearing the place apart.
He approves
Go
too.
nuts.
He's like, come back, Wig. Yeah, that's what he's saying. All right. Anyway, thanks everybody hanging out. Cheers.
Him in harvest and small, frozen visage cold as ice. With the evening star he flies through the storm, haunting cries.
Archer of the frozen lands, king's own power place within his hands. Succession, destiny calls. In the twilight he stands.
Hear the horn sound so clear. Hear the war cry, no regrets. Every fight brings destiny nearer. A saga of sunset. Saga of sunset.
Battlefields of frost and flame, in his armor's fire and pain. On his path the legends claim the echoes of his name.
Mountain peaks his eyes survey. Northern sun,